And just doing these things every day, of course,
Mm-hmm.
Mass as you can, but these little bit of prayer every day, keeping faithful, it just builds up, and you start building up a habit of God's presence.
Howdy there, gracious gang. It's the Gracious Guest Show. I am your humble host, Mike Creavey. So appreciative that you've stopped by today to really explore a topic that is super important, and that's prayer. And it's difficult and a very, very challenging sort of thing to discuss in a lot of ways, but one that there's great hope for us all, and we can always be growing in our prayer life. And so that's what we're going to look at today. Before we do anything, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. Share this far and wide. We all need some help with prayer, that's for sure. I'm delighted today to jump into a exploration of this wonderful text here from Tan Books. This is one of Tan's more recent publications. It's called Silence to Silence, A Benedictine Pilgrimage to God's Sanctuary by Benedictine priest Father Francis Bethel, who joins me to discuss this today in this interview. Father Bethel, from the jacket here, I'll just share. Father Francis Bethel, Order of St. Benedict, made his vows as a Benedictine monk in 1977 and was ordained a priest in 1983. In 1999, he was among the founders of the Benedictine Monastery of Our Lady of Clear Creek in Hulbert, Oklahoma. Many of you have probably heard of the Clear Creek Abbey. Gets a lot of great mention and a lot of praise, which I think is very much appreciated by the monks out there, and we talk about that a little bit in this interview for sure. He is the author of John Sr. and the Restoration of Realism. Father Bethel currently serves as Master of Studies at Clear Creek Abbey and teaches dogmatic theology. And so this is a wonderful book. We're going to get down into the details of how it's structured, what it's all about, how it can help you to learn how to pray well. So please sit back, enjoy, and we'll jump right into my interview with Father Francis Bethel, all on prayer. Check it out. Father Bethel, thank you so much for coming on the Gracious Guest Show. It's a wonderful chance to talk to you.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well, and I had to say, as soon as I heard about this book, when Tan sent me the notification about it, I was interested right away. Here, I've got my copy here. Got a bunch of tabs on it. I don't know if I'll get to all those, but your last name caught my eye. I thought, what a great,
Yes,
reminder, right?
Good name, yes.
Yeah. So why don't you tell our viewers here a little bit about yourself and just sort of your background, please?
Yeah. I'm from Wichita, Kansas. Born and raised Protestant without much culture. We used to go, we lived in a Presbyterian church, we went there. We lived in a Methodist church, we went there, type thing. Didn't know the difference, really.
Sure.
And famous, I went to KU and joined the famous humanities program, as did several monks here. I don't know how long you want me to go into this. So anyway.
Yeah, please, no.
Kind of in one movement. So reading the great books and with, the teachers pointing
out.
Was that
the Integrated Humanities Program, Father?
Yes,
Was that that one? Yes, yeah. Okay.
John Sr., Dennis Quinn, Frank Nellick. And with many others, we joined the church. And then just saw the beauty of monastic life and heard about the monastery in France called Fougambeau. So several of us went over there to Fougambeau. 7, in fact, these humanity program students, and became monks there. More, in fact, but a few left. And I entered in 1975. I'm born in 1953. I was 22 when I entered, and was there 24 years as a monk before we finally came back to Oklahoma. We didn't enter there it wasn't a deal. You enter here and we'll make a foundation someday.
Right.
To become a monk there. So, but they obviously, so many Americans entering there, they thought it might be the Lord's will. And eventually we started looking around, came to Oklahoma. So we're in a monastery near Tulsa, Oklahoma, Clear Creek Abbey, Our Lady of Clear Creek of the Annunciation. Here we are. We've been here 26 years, and I think it's gone pretty well. Very good bishops. We've been very supported by a lot of faithful moving out here also.
Yes.
We're building, doing well, a lot of young, healthy men, and we're trying to bring to Oklahoma and the United States what we acquired, learned, our formation, very good formation in Fougambeau, Salem congregation, very centered on the liturgy and Gregorian chant. We don't have parish. Most Benedictine houses in the United States have parishes or schools. We just focus on our prayer life, really. We do open the guest house wide, really, because people need a place they can come to, a quiet, prayerful, solid place. So we have a role there besides hopefully our prayer life. So there we are. And I've been here. So I've spent a third of my life in Kansas, third in France, and a third in Oklahoma for the moment. We'll see what happens. If I have many more thirds
absolutely.
So.
Well, and I've heard just through the grapevine, and just different, great Catholic books and podcasts and programming. Like I hear about Clear Creek comes up quite a bit, and I know the and correct me if I'm wrong, but would Bishop Conley and Bishop Coakley have been were they classmates of yours, or was that same program?
They were a little bit younger. Okay. I knew Coakley who's now president of the Episcopal Conference,
right.
You know that?
Right. So, that just happened. Yes, yeah.
And they're kind of close. So Conley's in Lincoln. He comes down twice a year, basically. Coakley's not too far, Bishop Coakley. They've done ordinations here and things. So we see them. They were a little younger than me. I did know Coakley in college a tiny bit. I didn't know Bishop Conley. So
Well, and it's so wonderful because you talked a little bit about that, and I'm a sort of an amateur fan of, it's maybe the best way to put it, but I've been very intrigued by the classical education movement and the real boom of it, especially these last couple decades. And so I've seen, John Senior comes up all the time, and I think you have a book, I think, correct, also about him, right? Or about the program.
I wrote a book on John Senior.
His
like a biography, mainly.
Sure.
An intellectual.
I'll link all these things below in the show notes too for anyone watching this. They can check that out for sure. But I do want to turn to your book here, Silence to Silence, and I thought I'd ask you, Father, just to kind of start out. On the jacket here, it gave a great description here, and it said for anyone wondering what we're talking about here, I thought this very simple line. It just says, "This book seeks to help readers foster a healthy prayer life," and I thought, you cover so much in it. I think that's a pretty good summary. It seems to be. So, yes, absolutely. So, before we get into any of that, maybe tell us about this title a little bit. The importance of silence as maybe something more than just quiet. Is that fair to say? How would you describe it?
Okay. Yeah. The editors didn't. They wanted a little more explanation. We finally added. I had a different subtitle and everything, but they wanted Pilgrimage to God's Sanctuary. So the idea of silence. Yeah. They just, what is this? The second silence is not obvious what I'm talking about there. I think I do explain in the introduction. The idea, basically, the interior silence is not being distracted, being able to focus on what we're doing and what we should be doing, and eventually notably in our prayer life, to be able to look at God, and all day long that we're keeping our life ordered to God and to heaven. So we're not being pulled in all directions, which is pretty hard today because we have a lot of images going all over the place. So that's this from silence, if you will, from silence to silence. And then the goal is God, his sanctuary. And that's silence too, because he transcends us. And so entering into his mystery, it's eventually beyond what we can clearly grasp. Now and then the middle part, so that's basically the organization of the book. And the middle part is how to kind of walk that way, learn about his beauty, his goodness, his love. We know he's good, we know he's beautiful, we know he's loved, he's more beautiful and better and more loving than we can conceive. So that's the silence we're heading for. And kind of in the prayer life, the idea is to meditate and then kind of get to a kind of a simple gaze where all that's entered in to this, in a union of a gaze of love, where you have all that in you. You meditate on his love, his beauty, and his goodness, and now you just take it up in a gaze, in a way. So that's the book. So that's the idea. This whole discipline of silence. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, and there's so many ways we could go with it. I thought I had a couple things I wanted to ask you about, without giving away too much. But this one really jumped out at me, especially about kind of the middle point, your section on faith. Because as you said, when you go through and you're talking about the theological virtues and beginning with really humility is sort of a gateway into those, the importance of that underlying all of them. I was really touched by this section you had, if I can just share it quickly, near the end of that chapter, where you were saying about this transition that can sometimes happen that we can miss, especially if we've been at it for a while, or we have maybe a particular pattern of prayer, something that worked for us in the past, and all of a sudden you find yourself, lay people in this case, where I have 3 little ones right now, and just there's certain things that I can't do that I used to do when I was in seminary or when I was a young theology teacher and not married yet, where if I try to rigidly stick to something, the way it used to be, or expect the consolations I used to get, I might be missing what God's doing now. And your line here I loved so much when you said,
yes,
you said, I love this. You said in your case, you were talking about your own case. You said, God, he said, he had been in front of me, as it were, as I felt his presence. Then he went behind me to fortify me, to lift up my actions. And you talk about the importance of being patient in the dark. And I thought that was such a neat way of describing it. Maybe if you don't mind sharing a little bit about what, for someone who might find themselves where I used to see him in front of me, so to speak, I'd see these consolations and it almost feels like he's not there right now, but maybe it's, he's integrating into what I'm doing and he's lifting me up in that way.
I think everybody goes through it and there's different levels. My particular experience I was talking about there was I was a young convert and just floating cloud 9, you might say, all the joys and the beauty of these discoveries.
The zeal.
Yeah. And just, and he was, I think, very sensibly present, and the angels and the saints, it was great. So I went to Fogombo to visit. I stayed there 9 months, and it was great. It was so beautiful, and my prayer life was so enjoyable, but it was hard. I didn't have much foundation. I was a recent convert, had no Christian foundation before that, really. So I was kind of just floating on the sensible stuff. And then but being alone in the silence every day before face to his mystery. And I don't know as far as his action, but anyway, I didn't feel him anymore, you might say. And so so we go through that at different stages. And, the dark nights of different types are much farther along, but it's a similar thing. And John of the Cross says he's really working in you in a deeper way. And you're not used to it. It takes a while to realize that. So you have to that's part of the silence too, not seeking for all these things you used to have and just patiently waiting on him, waiting on God. That's a big expression. So in my case, very much, you just find a deeper presence, a less sensible presence, but a deep. That's an expression. So he's in front of me. That's just a way of putting things. But he's kind. I could feel him, and I couldn't feel him more. But in fact, he was deeper. He was behind me. He was lifting up my actions. That's the idea. So, there you go.
Well, and it's so another theme I think throughout this, and I'll got a couple related questions for this. I loved you had that quote too about a little bit later in the section, some of the practical stuff when you shared that note from the homeschooling mother, and that had written to you, I guess. And I loved her comment there about impediment to finding time for prayer being the fact that we don't practically believe prayer is important enough to do instead of other things, right? And that's
strong line, huh? But yeah,
it is. Somehow. Yeah. So how does that? Yeah. Please go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead. No, finish your.
No, I was going to ask you, some advice you might have because most people, of course, probably watching this are lay people. I think based on my demographics, I see a lot of folks who are my age or older, kids, grandkids, trying to grow in their faith or maybe rediscover, some motivation, some helpful tips for what's something I can try today or tomorrow to get back on track. Try something simple, even.
So you're asking me here. Yes. So that's why the last couple of chapters of the book are along those lines, how to build up this silence and to have a habit of God's presence, his mystery. As far as prayer, it's hard for busy people, but I think there's 2 or 3 things. Regular Mass, Holy Mass, right, where you, if you can regularly, but at least every Sunday, that's one type of important adoring prayer. We can really learn a contemplative prayer there. Jesus' presence, the mystery of the Passion, communion. That's, unbeatable, obviously. And then we need daily stuff. If we can, a little bit of an office or something. It's nice if you, the little office of Our Lady or something, where all you have to do is go do it. If you can get, 7 or 8 minutes and ability to have silence enough. Okay, Lord, this is your time. I'm not going to worry about what I'm doing. You'll take care of that. I give myself to you. And then you just got it there and you just pray the best as you can and go back to your work. And then if we, a time every day, if we can, of more heart to heart with our Lord, if we can. Usually I think most people need to read a little bit and then think about it and pray about it. That's an easy way, and build up a contact with him. The Imitation of Christ or Scripture, something like that usually, or something you're reading. Otherwise, you're reading a book by Teresa of Avila, to think about that a little bit. And just doing these things every day, of course, Mass as you can, but these little bit of prayer every day, keeping faithful, it just builds up, and you start building up, hopefully, a habit of God's presence. And it's good, like you make your morning offering, to take it up during the day, like in the afternoon, to remind yourself of your morning offering and bring yourself back to God's presence. I quote Benedict XVI about, I think it's a great text, perfectly practical. Everything in the day to look on it with God's eyes, to interpret it for. We just need to live in the truth, the truth that the church faith. The church gives us God's presence. That's what we're made for. The angels are there, and look on everything according to God's light and start.
I know I keep stumbling upon. Because this point you're making here about the presence of God, I keep stumbling upon lately Brother Lawrence and
he's
and
great.
Also
very simple
Saint Charles Borromeo too. There was something in the Office of Readings a few weeks ago where he said something to the effect of, now he's talking to priests, but he said, you complain to me that you're distracted in your celebration of the Mass, but what were you doing in the sacristy before you came out? He's very practical about this. And I know Brother Lawrence says something similar about, the best way to avoid distraction in prayer is to work on avoiding it every time else too.
For sure.
So that's, so what for you, what would you maybe say in your experience, maybe as you came into the monastery, for example, and were making that transition from the world into this other world, right? What were some of the maybe more challenging things for you, and maybe what worked for you personally, like working on those distracting habits and trying to deal with those as they came up? And I'm sure they still do. I say it as if I'm sure you're never distracted. I'm sure you do.
So we are pretty aware, our monastery, there it is. What I was saying there about these little exercises during the day, that's what we do all the time. So, we have our morning office, then we have Scripture, then we have the High Mass. So it's just very regular. So you're either kind of coming or going all the time from church, really. And we're the degrees of humility and the rule of St. Benedict is living in God's presence. So that's it just kind of comes natural for us, if you will. Of course, there's still distractions. And I know, I used to think, I used to be very attentive to this when I'd do something. But I don't know. I don't have something right. Let's say I turned away deliberately from God for a moment there. I know I used to. When you go to your mental prayer. So we do our mental prayer, what we call mental prayer, about a half hour, kind of meditative and simple, heart to heart with our Lord. I knew I knew that evening it wouldn't be as good because I wasn't as good during the day. I just knew there'd be a little more. The more Passion says one good thing about distractions in a way is we know where we're a little too attached. Things we turn to in prayer that are not God, that's a sign we're something disordered there, that we want to go to that.
Right.
So different things. We have to, I think, in our mental prayer, in our time when we have a more silent time, different things for people. They might have an hour of adoration, the Blessed Sacrament. A lot of parishes have that sort of thing. Whatever they can, but building up this, finding His presence in a deep way, in the calm of our bottom of our soul, that helps a lot during the day. You can turn to that. Once you build up that interior cell that Catherine of Siena talks about, then you can find that during the day from time to time. So once you get to that point, it's much simpler. And so
Well, and the mystery, I don't recall if you used the term mystagogy in here. I'd never heard that word before I was studying in my grad program, but the idea of this, instead of, it's so easy, I think, for most of us to kind of look at these landmark moments in the Catholic life as if you get these achievement, so there's this sacrament, that sacrament, and to not see it as something that's an invitation to continually go deeper. And I love this quote you had from John of the Cross earlier in the book, back to the sort of bigger picture, right? The transcendence of just, who we are with here, right? I don't have it memorized yet. I wrote memorize this in the margin. I want to do that. But when he said, they tell me 1,000 graceful things of you, all wound me more and leave me dying of, I don't know what behind their stammering. And I just, I love how, there's definitely, it's for me as a married man, I think there's a beautiful analogy, and I try to pay attention wherever I feel like the Lord's trying to give me some indication there, where a lot of what you're saying, like if I can be with my wife in the kitchen, but like, cooking, or I'm on the phone or something, or I'm, and maybe we're chatting, but that's, to me, that's like what it's like when I'm back here. I usually pray in this room a lot in the morning, and it's like, yeah, I've got candles going, or I've got the office open, or I've got this over here. But before I know it, a half hour's gone by, and if I just step back and think about it, maybe I read something for 30 seconds and I really did have an interior sense that I should just stop and kind of let it ruminate. But I was like, I've got to read, I have to make it to the end of this thing. And so what would you say for those of us who might be, trying to do the right thing, but we're maybe too focused on the sort of format rather than the invitation of who's trying to reach us through it?
We do, most of us. Not everyone has the time, but most of us need some nourishing reading, if you can, a half hour regularly or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then this is kind of the ideal, but this is what I would recommend at another time of the day. And then the morning or your quiet time, then just really focus on mainly, like even when I say in the book there, when we just entered, when we went to our middle prayer, we didn't pick up a book unless we had to, kind of. The main thing was the contact with our Lord, talking things over with Him, perhaps. But also, we're so busy. People used to have simple labor, They just had more time to talk. Now we've got cell phones, and we're, even when we're doing something else, we're listening to music or something, or even talks, good talks. Just there's an overabundance of possibilities, and people used to just working in their garden or whatever. You just kind of reflect, and that's kind of learn how to be silent a little bit that we lack. So, what was your question again exactly, though?
Well, no, it's very much related, because I share this a lot, where now, just in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, you can't even pump gas without the screen starting some kind of advertisement, and that has been frustrating to me, that interstitial time of I used to stand at the pump for 2 minutes and just like, I can't do anything else right now, I'm just going to think, or like I'm looking at the mountain or something, and now that's even interrupted. So it really is important, I'm seeing for all of us to make that effort.
Everybody knows that, but we need a discipline with our electronic devices for sure. There's no other way for silence.
What would let me ask you this, Father, because you talk about the rosary, but you also talk about other devotions, and I love, that's one of my favorite sections at the end, where you go through and I thought it was just a wonderful summary, but also trying to show people that there's different sorts of things or different kinds of avenues here being presented through these, they're not all the same, essentially. What would you say to someone who maybe, has recognized in their own life, if you want to say the objective importance and the blessings associated with the rosary, but is struggling because, they feel more drawn maybe to a personal piety that might be more expressed through the Divine Mercy Chaplet or the same, something else like that? Is that something they should pay attention to, that perhaps that might be a unique, thing the Lord is really drawing them to focus maybe more on that, and not feel guilty that they're not doing
I don't feel
these other
guilty,
things?
but boy, the rosary is practically, that's almost, you're not obliged, but boy, it's so central to Catholic life that I would always highly recommend. I would never say to put aside the rosary. Personally. But I'm not trying to make people guilty either. But I know a gentleman pretty well known, I'm not going to say his name, but who really his life turned around. He was Catholic, of course, but when he started saying the Rosary seriously, completely changed his life.
Wow.
And Padre Pio said the Rosary all the time. All these great saints that said,
weapon, right? Yeah.
So, it can be more and more contemplative. I kind of try to describe it a contemplative way in the book, learning to look on the mystery with Mary. We have to make a little effort. It's a time a day. I look on it, my special time with Our Lady, and it's a kind of a relaxing time. It's an easy prayer, And
you said at the Abbey, you do it privately, right? Because you have so much common prayer. Is that correct?
Nearly
That's
always,
your method,
that's
right?
Why I
Sure.
put it. We have so much in common. That's a nice time we're doing with Our Lady. I know most families do it together. That's great, but it's a little effort. It's a kind of a path to contemplative prayer because you aren't really meditating. You're just more looking. We also need some little. It helps me too to announce the mystery, maybe a virtue I'm praying for, or something to think something about the mystery a little bit. Of course, all these little helps and yeah, and all that works. It's a different type of prayer. I think it's good to have these different types of prayers. A little bit of the office, Rosary, Mass, of course, quiet time. Those are all enriching. They're all very beautiful. They all have different aspects.
I think you mentioned this too, because I have over my desk here, I have the I used to change I would have like a psalm written on a little like a chalkboard kind of thing, I got from Hobby Lobby or something. It just looks nice. And at some point I stopped changing it, which I didn't intend to stop changing it. I didn't want to change it from Psalm 46 verse 10, be still and know that I am God. And it's been up for years now. And what I found was there was a day where I really had a strong impression of the literal side of that, like to literally be still. And that is a huge, some people might laugh, fair enough, but I didn't really realize till that moment how in the nature of just my work and the culture and the kinds of habits that I've gotten into, physically not moving, just sitting still in a chair on purpose, deliberately, and how enormously rejuvenating that can be, even psychologically, And I know there's certainly that feature, I think probably a little more regularly in your routine in the monastery to have those times of stillness in that very real way.
That's the motto of the book, by the way.
Well, exactly right.
The epigraph,
right.
That's both there. I've got to be still so I can listen to God and also be still. Who am I before God? Like Abraham, who am I to talk to you? And how your mystery is beyond what I can grasp. All that enters in. It's a great line.
Yeah, right. Well, and let me ask you, Father, just to kind of segue here. We have a couple minutes left, and I thought it might be nice to kind of focus on something you said earlier about the specific presence and the charism of the Benedictine spirituality, which I don't know if you say. I got my Benedictine ring on here. I love this. I love that the grace of Saint Benedict, but the charism of hospitality, right? The guests. Maybe share a little bit about what that's like at Clear Creek, maybe in particular, but a recommendation for any lay people for maybe retreats, wherever they're at. Please.
First of all, let me mention, after the council in the 60s, everything was changing in a lot of places and experiments and everything. And there was every 4 years, there's a reunion of all the Benedictine abbots in the world. And they were in Rome in 66 or so. And our abbot at the time asked St. Paul VI, the Pope, do you really want us to change? Is this your will that we change a lot of things? He said, no, you need to keep your traditions, but I want you to open wide your guest house. People really need an oasis. So that's we say it's integral to our life. It's not essential. We can do without it. We have our prayer life, but it's normally part of our life that we have that to offer. That's something we can really offer to people. So people can come. It's need to spend 2 or 3 days at least some people come Friday evening, they're just getting settled down, Saturday morning, time to go, but still they got settled down a little bit. So we try to have this enter into our life to be able to follow the liturgy. I usually think after 2 or 3 days, if they're a little more aware and attentive to God's presence and a little more determined to do his will, that's pretty good. So they eat, the monks or the men eat with us, they work with us if they like a little bit. Some of the monks, they can always ask for a priest. So the women don't eat with it. We have houses for families and women, and there's there's one house with a lady that takes care of it for individual women, more or less.
Wonderful.
And the men can stay there, or at least they can stay in the family houses. And they also can have a bunch of men in a family house. And then we have a lot of rooms for men, and they eat with us. And there's 3 or 4 monks that come out after the meals and just kind of chat a little bit. Father Abbot comes out once in a while, and they can always see a priest. So it's a real service we can offer that you can't quite get anywhere else, Even with talk to a good priest, but you can't have that whole atmosphere very easily. We can provide here. It's beautiful out here. It's a beautiful countryside and good, healthy work. So we can recommend books and stuff also, of course. And
I did some of my post commissioning training when I was in the Army years ago down at Fort Sill, but I haven't been to Oklahoma in almost 20 years, so maybe it's time to come out again. We'll see.
Please. Yeah. You've done a lot of things, by the way.
It's a sometimes I look at the resume and just it's like, when did all of these things happen? It feels like it was all just yesterday. So, well, Father, thank you so much. I really am very grateful for the book. I hope people get it. We'll put the word out, and thank you so much for coming on.
Okay. All right. God bless you. Thank you.
Well, I can't sing the praises highly enough of this book, and kudos to Father Bethel. It was delightful to talk to him about this, and to really remind you all to get a copy here. I've got everything linked below for Silence to Silence, a Benedictine pilgrimage to God's sanctuary. As you see mine, if you can see this, I've got a lot of tabs on it for what it's worth, little exclamation points. There's all kinds of things that jumped out at me, and I'm already trying to put into practice quite a few things that I picked up on from Father's book. So great time as you're watching this. At least we're getting into the Advent season. Christmas is coming up, so it might be a great opportunity, a great gift item to get someone in your family. Or if you're watching this any other time of the year, you got a birthday coming up, or you just want to go deeper into prayer, or try to help someone go deeper and enter more deeply into prayer in a more meaningful way. This is definitely a great thing to get your hands on. So God bless you all. Thanks for stopping by today on the Gracious Guest Show. I'm your host, Mike Creavey. Thank you again for joining us. And until next time, don't forget to wonder. Take care.